Hello, Jacksonites, and welcome to my newest stream video. And my light is going to drive me nuts. So actually, let me readjust it for just a minute. Hang on. No, it's not. That's better. Okay. Let's leave this on. So you read the title right. Today I will be ranking the MCU, aka ranking the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Sorta. Similar to me ranking the X-Men series, I have not seen the entire MCU, though I have seen a majority of the series. Of the entire MCU, I have only seen three. I have not seen only 3 or 4, at the most 5 movies. So actually, let me check this out. Let's see. I have not seen Iron Man 3, Thor: The Dark World, Doctor Strange, Avengers Endgame, and Spider-Man Far From Home. Admittedly, aside from Avengers Endgame, I am not interested in seeing any of those other films. I will explain why in due time, but mainly because I've heard Iron Man 3 and Thor: The Dark World both suck donkey balls, and I don't like this version of Spider-Man. I kind of spoil my ranking for Spider-Man Homecoming, but whatever. So I will be ranking a majority of the series, though. Aside from those, I have seen the rest of the series, and I own pretty much all of them, except for the first Thor. I'll explain why later. So this will be a, let's see, 1, 2. This will be a top 18 Marvel movies list. Oh, my wife is here. Hello, honey. So you may be asking why I'm doing this. Well, Avengers Endgame just came out on DVD not too long ago. And though don't expect that movie to be on this list, because I refuse to spend $30 on one movie. Kiss my ass. I don't give a shit if the movie's 3 hours long. I am not spending $30 on one fucking movie. And from what I've heard of Avengers Endgame, I actually kind of get the feeling I would not like it nearly as much as everyone else does. Mainly just because they make an absolute mockery out of the Incredible Hulk. And they now turn him into the Last Jedi Hulk. It kind of seems like that's what they do. So Avengers Endgame is not on this list as well. So with all that being said, let's get into, in my opinion, from worst to best, the MCU that I have seen thus far. The first one's going to be very controversial. I don't give a fuck. Coming in at the bottom of the list, in my opinion, this is the absolute worst of the entire MCU. I would actually rank it as one of the top 5 worst superhero movies ever made, bar none. At number 18, at the bottom of the barrel, Black Panther. Yeah, I said it. Black Panther is a complete piece of shit. I don't give a fuck what anybody says about Black Panther. In my opinion, it is a complete piece of shit. It's one of the worst superhero movies ever made and is easily the worst of the MCU. I sort of bought into the hype when the movie was coming out. Right before I saw the movie, I didn't really know that much about Black Panther to begin with. sorry. Yeah, I didn't know much about Black Panther going into the movie, so I decided to do a little bit of research. And I actually do think Black Panther himself is kind of an underrated character. But honestly, I feel like Black Panther was done more justice in pretty much anything else but his own fucking movie. Um, Save your rankings for the MCU for a little later, Shiny Boy, because that's going to be a long list. So yeah, I researched Black Panther and I got a little excited. So when Black Panther came out on DVD, I decided, all right, I'll go out and I'll buy Black Panther. And my brother was actually visiting me at the time. So he and I, it wasn't the first time for him, but for the first time, I sat down and watched Black Panther with my brother. And I will say that there are a couple things that I do like about the film. The humor is pretty good. There's two moments in the movie that I do think are pretty good laugh out loud moments. The first being Black Panther's sister walking away from her mom and just her flipping her the bird. And then there's also the sneakers line. I built these shoes myself. They don't make any noise. What do you call them? Sneakers. So that got a little snicker out of me. But aside from that, there is nothing that I like about Black Panther whatsoever. The CG and green screen effects are absolute utter garbage. They look worse than Attack of the Clones. Really fucking sad considering this movie is 13 years late. No, 14 years after. No, 16 years after Attack of the Clones. Fucking sad. The music score I find to be incredibly generic. All the acting and all the dialogue feels very wooden and just doesn't. It's not well written. It's not well delivered either. The fight scenes and the action scenes are fucking piss poor. There's not enough action scenes as well. The villain, okay, Michael B. Jordan is not a good actor. I don't give a shit what anybody says. I have not seen Creed or Creed 2, and I have heard he's good there. But of all the movies that I've seen Michael B. Jordan in, there's not a single one that I consider him to be good in. Michael B. Jordan is not a good actor as far as I'm concerned. And his villain, Killmonger, is not the worst villain of the MCU. That actually goes to Thor Ragnarok. As much as I love this movie, Thor Ragnarok's villain, I actually think is the worst of the MCU, but Killmonger may be the second worst. I completely lost interest in him when I found out what his evil plan is. His evil scheme is to infiltrate Wakanda, become the king, and distribute Wakanda technology to ghetto neighborhoods around the world so they can fight back against white people. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? I can't take the movie seriously after that. So, and the final battle between Black Panther and Killmonger is fucking piss poor. They focus more on the fucking fight between the followers of Black Panther and Killmonger more than the actual fight between Black Panther and Killmonger. There is almost nothing that I think is good about Black Panther. And if I have to sit through Black Panther one more fucking time, I may as well just chop my nuts off with the fucking rusty butcher's knife. Black Panther is a piece of garbage. It is one of the worst superhero movies I've ever seen. Potentially maybe one of the worst movies of 2018, bar none. Black Panther's a piece of shit. I don't give a shit what anybody says about it. As far as I'm concerned, it's one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Fuck Black Panther. All right, then. Now that's out of the way. At number 17 is the first Thor. I never really was a big Thor fan. Wait, no, I'll talk about that in just a minute. Thankfully, the MCU, not because of the Thor movies, but because of the first Avengers movie. Um, the first Avengers movie did make me appreciate Thor a lot more. But when I heard that there was a Thor movie being made, I couldn't give any less of a shit. And when I saw the movie, I realized I wasn't missing much. The couple of good things that I say that are good about the first Thor, Chris Hemsworth is perfectly cast as Thor. I will give him that. Though it's kind of weird going from Thor Ragnarok and Avengers Infinity War style Thor to Thor 1 and Avengers Thor, seeing him babyface with long hair. It's just it's a little jarring for me, but that's just kind of a minor nitpick. Anthony Hopkins is perfectly cast as Odin. I didn't realize that was Anthony Hopkins till about a year ago, but that's fine, honey. Yeah, Anthony Hopkins is great as Odin. Tom Hiddleston is okay as Loki in the first Thor. I actually feel like Tom Hiddleston gets way better as Loki from the Avengers and on, especially in Thor Ragnarok. And I haven't seen Thor Dark World, so I can't say how good he is there. But Tom Hiddleston's okay as Loki in the first Thor. And the Destroyer looks cool. But outside of that, I just really did not enjoy Thor. There's not enough action. There's way too much filler. I can't stand Natalie Portman. I can't stand her in any movie that she's in. The fight between Thor and the Destroyer is fucking piss poor. And Thor is depowered a good majority of the movie. That's another thing that I hate about Black Panther is that Black Panther is depowered a good majority of his own fucking movie. I hate it when superhero movies do that. They introduce a potentially badass superhero and then they just take away his powers for like 2/3 of the film. So he only has his powers in the first 30 minutes, then the last 30 minutes of the movie. I hate that. I hate it when superhero movies do that. And Black Panther and Thor are two of the worst examples where superheroes are depowered a majority of their own film. It's also one reason why I'm really not interested in seeing the Wolverine. But outside of that, I just don't enjoy Thor. I think it's boring. It's not very well made. It's just a chore to sit through. And I definitely do say it is the weakest link in the first phase of the MCU. Coming in at 16, Captain Marvel. Now, Shawnee Boy says that in his opinion, Captain Marvel is the worst of the MCU. While I don't think it's that bad, I can admit I was not impressed by Captain Marvel. I like the character of Carol Danvers, and I do remember a lot of people bitching and moaning when they announced we're using the female version of Captain Marvel. I actually was okay with it because the female version of Captain Marvel is the most famous version, and she's also debatably the most powerful. So I had no issue with the female version of Captain Marvel being used. I did get kind of concerned when I heard Brie Larson was being cast. I liked her in Kong Skull Island, but when I heard that she was supposedly, sorry, I'm just hot in this thing, so I guess I have to deal with the contrast. I will say that agree with Shawnee Boy that her character doesn't really have any arc throughout the film. It's just aside from her rediscovering who she is, outside of that, she's just kind of a blank state. She's just kind of a blank slate. But when I heard Brie Larson might be incorporating feminism into her performance, that's when I started to lose faith in the film. I was gonna take my wife to go see it in theaters, but that just kind of escaped us, partially because I lost my job, and also because we weren't really all that interested in it. But I did manage to watch it when my wife's stepdad rented it off a Redbox, and I just said, "Fuck it, I'll watch Captain Marvel." So I sat down, and the movie just really didn't leave any lasting impression on me. So the good things I can say is that Samuel Jackson, of course, still plays Nick Fury very, very good. The CG de-aging on Samuel Jackson looked perfect. I did not notice any frame on screen where it looked like Samuel Jackson's face was CGI'd. It looked perfect. It looked like I was looking at a real young Samuel Jackson. So that looked really good. It also does help that Samuel Jackson actually has aged pretty well, in my opinion. The man is almost 70, but he still looks like he's 50. So that's good. Special effects are pretty good. I like how it recreated the 90s. There was a lot of 90s nostalgia shots, especially when Captain Marvel breaks into a blockbuster. There's a couple funny lines too. But outside of that, Captain Marvel it really didn't impress me. There's not enough action, and what action scenes we do have, they're extremely basic and they're over very, very, very quickly. The story just doesn't feel like it has any weight, and like Shawnee Boy says, Captain Marvel doesn't feel like she has a real arc in the film. It also feels extremely, extremely superhero origin story formulaic, and that's a big issue for me. So it's not a bad movie. It did not live up to its hype, like at all. And I would not rank it as one of the best superhero movies ever made. I wouldn't even rank it as one of the best movies in 2019. Not even close. Although I will say this too, a lot of people were bitching and moaning that there was a lot of feminism tropes and feminazi stuff in the film. Now, maybe that just goes over my head and I just don't get it, but I really didn't see any. I didn't get the feminazi vibe from Brie Larson's performance whatsoever. She was just playing a character who was trying to rediscover who she was. That's it. Now, if there is one superhero movie that I think is really forcing the SJW feminazi bullshit, I actually say that's Dark Phoenix. Because, there's a scene in the movie where Mystique says, you should change the name of the team to X Women because it seems like the women do most of the lifting around here. What the hell does that have to do with the price of rice in China? Whatever, that's just J-Law for you. So overall, Captain Marvel, it's not a bad movie. It's just not impressive at all. I was not blown away by the movie. It didn't live up to its hype. I don't think it deserved to make over $1 billion. Maybe 600 million, but other than that, no. And if you were to compare Captain Marvel to Wonder Woman beats its ass every single day, every single time, in every single category. Coming in at number, let's see, hang on. Okay. At number 15 is Spider-Man Homecoming. For the first time, when I heard that Spider-Man Homecoming, or when I heard that Spider-Man Homecoming was not being made, I was not excited for a Spider-Man movie. I was a little excited for the Amazing Spider-Man movies, but aside from Into the Spider-Verse, there has not been a good Spider-Man movie, a really good Spider-Man movie since Spider-Man 3. So when I heard that Spider-Man Homecoming was being added to the MCU, I was not excited. I'm actually pretty against it still to this day. When I first saw the movie, I will admit that I did kind of like it. I thought it was kind of funny. And I thought there were some good jokes in there. There were some decent scenes in it. But as I've thought about it more, Justin, if you don't stop with the fucking stupid ass comments, I'm gonna boot you out of the chat. Why would I watch MCU porn parodies, you fucking idiot? Moving on. So Spider-Man Homecoming has lost a lot of value for me the more that I've thought about it and the more that I've seen it. My main issue with Spider-Man, with the MCU's version of Spider-Man, is that he feels like Iron Man's sidekick. One of the most captivating things about Spider-Man from day one was that Spider-Man was discovering his own abilities and discovering how to fight all by himself. He may have took influence and bits and pieces from other superheroes, but it was still, he was making things up as he went along all by himself, and that's what made us not really fall for him, but that's what made us care about him as a character, and that's what made so many people become big Spider-Man fans. And like Sean just said, the MCU version of Spider-Man is Iron Man Jr. Spider-Man is given all of his, maybe not his superpowers, which I would like to know. How the hell did he get his powers in the first place? But whatever, that's not really important. Spider-Man is given all of his suits, all of his web shooters. His Iron Spider suit is just given to him by Tony Stark. He really does feel like an offshoot of Iron Man, and honestly, it's pretty piss poor. In my opinion. So with Spider-Man Homecoming, I'm just gonna say it. Tom Holland is miscast as Peter Parker. He doesn't look like Peter Parker to me whatsoever. He does not convey the feeling of Peter Parker whatsoever to me. And honestly, aside from maybe Michael Keaton as Vulture, who I actually do think was probably the best part of Spider-Man Homecoming, as much as I don't like Vulture, I actually think he might be my least favorite Spider-Man villain. Michael Keaton did do a good job playing Vulture. The action scenes are piss poor. The dialogue and the humor is very childish. There's not really all that much to the movie. It's just a glorified heist movie. And every single actor portraying every single Spider-Man character, again, except for Michael Keaton, is miscast. Tom Holland is miscast. Zendaya is completely fucking miscast. The guy who plays this version of Flash Thompson is miscast. Aunt May is miscast. I don't even know what the fuck the actress's name is, nor do I care. Everybody is just miscast. And I also have to say that Spider-Man's friend, and I can't remember his name, but his friend who figures out you're the Spider-Man from YouTube, that guy, he's one of the most annoying characters in all of the MCU, without a shadow of a doubt. So the more I think about Spider-Man Homecoming, the less that I like it. And I'd actually have to say I may almost prefer Amazing Spider-Man 2 over Spider-Man Homecoming. So with that being said, moving on. At number 14 is Guardians of the Galaxy Part 2. I don't think Guardians 2 is a bad movie. I'd actually say it's really funny. But compared to the first Guardians movie, I think it's a major step down. There's not nearly as much action. I feel like they took some of the characters a step backwards from their development from the first Guardians movie. Actually, really, that's my only two issues with Guardians 2. There's not nearly enough action, and the character development seems like it's just regressing, specifically with Rocket. They make Rocket much more of an asshole in this movie than he was in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. In the first Guardians movie, he was an asshole, but he was funny. Here, he's just a stupid asshole, and I just don't get it. Why would you go in that direction with Rocket? And are you trying to be an idiot? Are you trying to be idiots? I also feel like Kurt Russell was miscast as Ego the Living Planet. I just don't buy him as being literally one of the biggest villains in the entire Marvel universe. Who is my favorite Guardian turned Guardians? Well, if it was the MCU version of, or no, if it was the actual Marvel version of this character, I would say it was Drax. But I actually have to say that the MCU version of Drax is ridiculously underpowered. But I'll talk about that later. So I'd actually probably have to say Groot from the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. I am also going to say I don't like Baby Groot. I actually can't stand Baby Groot. I think he's annoying and useless and fucking annoying. I also feel like killing off Yondu Udanta was kind of a dumb decision because they could have had him as another member of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, again, it's funny, and there are a couple moments that I like, but outside of that, Guardians 2, it's a major step down from the first movie. At number 13 is the first Iron Man, the very first installment of the MCU, and it's not one of my favorites. I admit I did see Iron Man in theaters, mostly because my dad was really excited for this film. So I saw it in theaters, and I do remember liking it. But then I went on a massive tirade when I rewatched the film, saying how much I hated the movie. And the problems that I do have with the movie do still stand to this day. It is extremely, extremely, extremely representative of the superhero origin story trend. Honestly, I'd say it's one of the biggest examples of this. There's nowhere near enough action. Iron Man gets his ass kicked way too fucking easily in the third act. If you wanted to weaken him a little bit to make the fight scene that much more exciting, then okay, fine. I don't like that trend either because I just feel like that's lazy writing. But you didn't have to do it to this degree. Iron Man gets his ass kicked so badly in the third act, it's almost a joke. Yeah, it is a little strange going back and watching the first Iron Man. But I rewatched the movie a couple of years ago, getting over my initial hatred of the film, and I did realize that yes, Iron Man is still a good movie. It's well written. Robert Downey Jr. is perfect as Tony Stark. You could not have picked a better actor to portray Tony Stark. And well, now that Tony Stark is dead, at least they can't recast Tony Stark. But if they ever decide to bring Tony Stark back into the MCU somehow, they better get Robert Downey Jr. back because you cannot portray Iron Man with anybody else other than Robert Downey Jr. The humor is also very good. Robert Downey Jr., I feel like a lot of his humorous dialogue in the first Iron Man, I feel like a lot of that was improv. The action scenes, even though they're really, 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 really few and far between, and they're extremely short, and they're actually pretty. No, they're not piss poor. They're just really short, and there's really not enough action. The action scenes we do have are very entertaining. Steven, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Moving on. Stop distracting me. So yeah, the Iron Man 1, it's a good movie. It's just the issues that I have with the film hold it back from me giving it a higher ranking on this list. I enjoy it, and if I could sit down and watch Iron Man, I'd still be entertained. But it's just not one of my favorites. At number 12 is Iron Man 2. Thankfully, Iron Man 2 is one of those examples of a number 2 sequel that, in my opinion, is A, better than its predecessor, and does the number two trope of taking everything that was in the first film and just upping it up a notch. Though thankfully, unfortunately, Iron Man 2, unlike Blade 2 or Avengers 2, where they take everything and bump it up to the umpteenth degree, I just think Iron Man 2 takes everything about the first Iron Man and just bumps it up one notch. There's a little bit more action. There's a little bit more humor. There's a lot more world building in Iron Man 2. You have the introduction of Black Widow. You have the introduction of well, no, that was in Shield, but Shield is greatly expanded upon. You have the introduction of Nick Fury, I believe. Overall, Iron Man 2, I just think it is better than the first one. I did also see it in theaters. You also have the introduction of War Machine. Well, he was introduced in the first Iron Man, but he was recast. But you have the introduction of the War Machine suit. And War Machine, I feel, is one of the most underrated Marvel superheroes. Even though he kind of does suffer from being an offshoot of Iron Man, I still feel like he's different enough to be his own character. But not much to say about Iron Man 2. I enjoy it a little bit more than the first one, though I still do say there's not enough action in the film. And the villain is debatably weaker than in the first film. The MCU, in my opinion, has always struggled with villains, in my opinion. But whatever. At number 11 is the first Guardians of the Galaxy. I'll admit, when I heard Guardians of the Galaxy was coming out, I really couldn't have cared less. I was not familiar with Guardians of the Galaxy. Hang on one second. Also, if I look very shiny right now, that's because it is fucking hot in here. Anyway, so yeah, I was not interested in Guardians of the Galaxy. I knew nothing about the Guardians of the Galaxy. I just did not give a flying fuck. But lo and behold, I managed to sit down and watch the movie when it was out on DVD with my dad, of all people. And I remember being pretty interested, so I took the movie, or I borrowed the movie, and I watched it from beginning to end in my own room on my own TV. And I remember liking the movie. And also a week later after that, I was booted out of my dad's. So that Guardians of the Galaxy always makes me think of that time whenever I watch it. But getting past that, that's an entirely different story. Guardians of the Galaxy, it's a fun movie. It definitely does, again, suffer from being the superhero origin story. There's not enough. I sound like a fucking broken record. There's not enough action. However, I feel like with how funny the movie is and with how much interesting world building, Ronan is a terrible villain. I would definitely, if I was to rank the villains of the MCU, Ronan would be in the top 5 worst. He has no presence, no threat, barely any screen time whatsoever. And I actually say he's even worse than Captain Marvel. Another big problem that I have with Captain Marvel is that it doesn't really have a villain. Again, I feel like the MCU has always struggled with villains. But with how funny the movie is and with how much world building in the space era of the MCU, thank God James Gunn was handling that. It's interesting enough to have me kind of let the lack of action slide. And what action scenes we do have in the Guardians of the Galaxy are very entertaining. One of my biggest problems with the movie, though, is its interpretation of Drax the Destroyer. In the Marvel comics, Drax the Destroyer is much more powerful. He's powerful enough to take on the Hulk. He's powerful enough to take on Thanos by himself. Whereas the MCU version of Drax is like 1/6 of the level of strength that the comics version has. It's pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. I will say that Dave Bautista does do a good job portraying Drax, but it's just the interpretation of this character I just can't stand. If they were to take more influence from the comics with Drax and still have Dave Bautista play him, that would have been even better. But no, we have what we have. And also Vin Diesel as Groot, couldn't have picked a better choice, even though he just says, I am Groot, I am Groot, I am Groot, I am Groot. He still does a good job. And I love this version of Groot. It's a shame that we have not. This is the only movie where we see Groot like this, fully grown and fully a badass. I don't like him in Guardians 2. He's okay in Avengers Infinity War, but that's just because he's stronger than Baby Groot. But other than that, I like this version of Groot. I like adult Groot. So overall, and also, Chris Pratt was perfectly cast as Star-Lord. I'm not really a big fan of this version of Star-Lord because, again, I think he's much more powerful in the comics. But this version of Star-Lord, I do feel, is a pretty good representation. And again, Chris Pratt was perfectly cast. So Guardians of the Galaxy, it's a fun movie. Oh, yeah, where are his Raptors? At number 10 is Ant-Man and the Wasp. Ironically enough, my wife bought me Ant-Man for Christmas, and my stepmom bought me Ant-Man and the Wasp also for Christmas. So I got the first Ant-Man one day, and then the second Ant-Man a couple days later. So Ant-Man and the Wasp, I don't really think there's anything bad about the movie. It's just not as good as the first Ant-Man. The first Ant-Man was a big heist movie in the guise of a superhero movie, and in that case, it worked. But with Ant-Man and the Wasp, it's just kind of a keep this stuff away from the bad guys that are trying to catch us movie, which it works there too, but it's just not as good as the first film. Oh, and also Ghost, I think that's her name, the villain, quote unquote, of the movie is pretty piss poor. This is another one of those MCU movies that really lacks a good villain. And that's unfortunate in my opinion. It's actually one big problem that I have with Ant-Man and the Wasp is that it lacks a good villain. But the humor is pretty good. The action scenes are pretty good. The whole movie is fairly tense, except for the scenes where it's funny. The special effects are really good. Michelle Pfeiffer as the Wasp's mom, I thought was pretty cool. And, of course, Michael Douglas absolutely kills it as the original Hank Pym. I do think that's pretty cool. But outside of that, Ant-Man and the Wasp, again, there's not much to say about it. It's a good movie. It's just not as good as the first Ant-Man. At number 9, Avengers Infinity War. I finally have seen the film. It's a good movie. It is a good movie. It's well made. Its $300 million budget was certainly very, very well used. The action scenes are pretty entertaining. The Battle of Wakanda is one of 2 highlights of the film. Special effects are really great. I like that the movie is as long as it is. I don't mind it being 2.5 hours long. I kind of feel like you couldn't have done it any other way. And the biggest thing that I like about Infinity War is that Josh Brolin as Thanos is awesome. I wouldn't say Hulk was bad in Thor Ragnarok. When he was on screen, Hulk was awesome. There just wasn't enough of him in that film. But I'll talk about that in just a minute. Josh Brolin as Thanos. Honestly, if you want to watch Avengers Infinity War for Thanos alone, that's fine. Because I honestly feel like Thanos is the highlight of the movie. He's almost a sympathetic villain, but he is still technically someone who commits mass genocide almost daily. So it's pretty hard to sympathize with him there. Okay, yeah, there you go. Banner was bad post Avengers 2. I'll agree with you there. But here's what I don't like about Infinity War. Spider-Man. All the characters dying. I do feel like that the scene where everybody dies at the very end is really, really tough to sit through, especially Spider-Man's death. Actually made my wife cry when she saw it in theaters. It is pretty depressing. I don't mind if occasionally I don't mind a movie where the bad guys win. But here's the thing. I feel like the heroes don't really put up that much of a fight. The Battle of Wakanda, that's different, I feel, because I feel like the heroes there really do put up a good fight. It's just the heroes against Thanos, aside from Iron Man, none of them really, really like make Thanos stagger. That's stupid. And also 4, they turn Hulk and give him the Last Jedi treatment. It's a fucking joke. Hulk is a complete joke. Hulk is my biggest problem with Avengers Infinity War. I don't have an issue with Thanos defeating Hulk because he is technically one of the few characters that can that he can go toe-to-toe with Hulk for a while, at least until Hulk builds up his strength to surpass Thanos, but Thanos still is powerful enough to take him on. My issue with the Hulk versus Thanos fight is that is way too short. I timed it. It's literally 40 seconds long. It should have been like 14 minutes long. You would have started off with Hulk just beating the ever-living shit out of Thanos. But then Thanos would have learned Hulk's fighting style. And while I will say that Hulk is the stronger physically character than Thanos, Thanos is the more skilled hand-to-hand combatant. So he would have used his extensive hand-to-hand combat skills to take down Hulk, which that kind of is what they do with the fight in Avengers Infinity War. It just snap your fingers, and that's how long it takes. It should have been like a 15-minute long fight. So that's piss poor. Okay, enough Jurassic Park talk here, okay? This is not has nothing to do with what I'm doing here today. So Avengers Infinity War, it's a good movie. I have some problems with it, major problems with the film, but it is an enjoyable movie. But thus far, I definitely will say it's my least favorite Avengers movie. That may change when I see Avengers Endgame because I've already heard some things about that movie that I'm not going to like. Ahem, Hulk is even worse. But we'll have to see. At number 8, Ant-Man. I think I said this before. I really was not really all that interested in Ant-Man when the movie came out. I just really wasn't a fan of the character all that much. Hang on one second. I wasn't interested in the character. I was not buying the hype. But then I got it for Christmas from my wife, so I'm not going to say no, I don't want that movie. Plus, I was getting a little curious about the movie at the time. In 2012, how did you feel about Thanos' design? I didn't like it all that much. I knew who it was, but Thanos didn't look all that good. I still, to this day, say that I would have loved to see Ron Perlman play Thanos, but I will say, yeah, Josh Brolin does do a very good job. But imagine if Ron Perlman played Thanos, you bring his Hellboy voice to become more grand in scale. Adapt World War Hulk and Planet Hulk. There's my ideas. If it doesn't involve Hulk, I don't give a damn. That's why I'm really not caring about anything post Avengers Endgame as far as the MCU goes. So yeah, I sat down with the wife to watch Ant-Man, and I'll admit, I liked it. Obviously, because I put it as one of my favorite superhero movies. I really liked Ant-Man. I thought it was a really fun movie. Paul Rudd was perfectly cast. And this is my exposure to Paul Rudd. My wife's exposure to Paul Rudd was, well, actually, no, technically it was Halloween 6, but I didn't realize who Paul Rudd was at the time. But after I watched Ant-Man, I discovered who Paul Rudd was. So this movie was my true introduction to Paul Rudd when I finally realized who Paul Rudd is. So I've seen a few movies that he's been in. I've seen Halloween Part 6, which that's definitely his worst performance. I've seen 40-Year-Old Virgin, where I think he's pretty funny in there. I saw Knocked Up, where I didn't think he was as good in there than he was in 40-Year-Old Virgin. He's good in both Ant-Man movies. Let's see. And he was good as the teacher in Perks of Being a Wallflower. Agree with what Justin says. The action scenes are pretty good. Ant-Man taking on the Falcon, I thought that was a nice little twist. It was throwing those Avengers guys a little bone, saying, hey, watch Ant-Man take on a member of the Avengers. I mean, it's one of the weaker ones, but still Falcon is a good superhero. And yeah, Paul Rudd is just a likable dude. And of course, Michael Douglas as the original Hank Pym. He's awesome. He's really awesome. I will definitely say that Michael Douglas is equally as good as his father, of course, being Kirk Douglas. He's a good actor. They couldn't have picked a better character to play Hank Pym, so I thought that was really cool. Tobey Maguire or Tom Holland? Tobey Maguire all the way. Like nobody has come close to surpassing Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. That's a dumb question. Why would you ask me that? So overall, Ant-Man was a fun movie. Do I have any complaints? No. Well, actually, maybe one. I feel like the actor who portrays the villain in the movie, which this movie has a decent villain, but his acting is a little too over the top sometimes for my tastes. That can be kind of a nitpick. Overall, Ant-Man was a fun movie. I went in the movie not really expecting much, and I was pleasantly surprised. At number 7 is Captain America, The First Avenger. I've already talked about this one a little bit. Actually, all of these movies I've talked about a little bit, so I'm just going to kind of speed things up. Captain America, The First Avenger, it's a great movie. One of my favorite superhero movies. It's a great introduction to Captain America. You could not have picked a better actor to play Chris Evans. To play Steve Rogers. Chris Evans absolutely kills it. Definitely his best performance. I've seen him in only 2 other movies except for Captain America. That being the 2 Fantastic Four movies. But I thought he was good as Human Torch too. Well, especially in the first one. Rise of the Silver Surfer is just terrible. Tommy Lee Jones is awesome. Then again, name one movie that Tommy Lee Jones is in where he's not good. Can't do it. The action scenes are great. The effects are great. I like how it recreates World War II. Does a great job of that. Overall, Captain America it's an awesome movie. Couldn't ask for a better and it's also not really formulaic to the superhero origin stuff. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm sweating like crazy. This is going to be loud, so bear with me. Okay. Andy Serkis could have pulled it off as Thanos, definitely. Kind of bring more of his Kong or Caesar facial expressions to Thanos. Andy Serkis easily could have pulled off Thanos. I even say Tommy Lee Jones is good in Batman Forever. I have never seen a movie where Tommy Lee Jones was in it. Even if the movie around him is bad, I still say Tommy Lee Jones always gives a good performance whatever he's doing. He's just one of those actors where whatever I see him in, he's never done a bad performance, in my opinion. And also, yeah, Tommy Lee Jones is the best Two-Face. Fuck the Dark Knight. At number 6 is Captain America, the Winter Soldier. I don't know why I avoided this one for so long. I just really wasn't interested in seeing it. But when I sat down to watch Winter Soldier, well, first off, I read that Chris Evans really bumped up his martial arts training for Captain America for Winter Soldier not too long before I watched the film. And that made me respect Chris Evans a lot more for portraying Captain America. I mean, obviously he went through martial arts training for Captain America 1 and the Avengers, duh. But they really bumped up his martial arts training for Winter Soldier, and it shows. The action scenes are a whole hell of a lot better. They're not the best edited, I will say that, but the fight scenes in this movie are really, really good. They're some of the best that the MCU has to offer. You get a lot more Black Widow screen time interacting with Captain America, which I still feel like Black Widow and Captain America make a better team than Black Widow and Iron Man. I'm not even gonna dignify that with a response. You get a lot more screen time with Nick Fury. I feel like his acting wasn't bad before. I mean, he's still really good in the Avengers, but Samuel Jackson really beefs up his acting skills as Nick Fury in Winter Soldier, and that's really cool. There's a couple really good twists as well. And it's also nice seeing Captain America in the classic 40s Captain America suit one more time. The guy they have playing Bucky Barnes or the Winter Soldier is awesome. He was the same guy from the first Captain America movie, but he's way better in this movie. He plays much more of a badass character. Why didn't they fucking make him the next Captain America? Why? I have nothing against Falcon, but why is Bucky Barnes not the next Captain America? Why? Let's see, there was another thing I wanted to... Oh, the Captain America elevator fight, I would actually have to say, is one of the best fight scenes of the entire superhero genre, bar none. Like, I'd say it's in the top 10. It's really short, unfortunately, but it's awesome. It's really cool to see Captain America take on, what is it, like 8 dudes in one small space. And actually, I'd probably say it's the best edited fight scene in the entire movie. That was a great scene. And I also like the way they started off. I feel like this is when Chris Evans really got into the character of Captain America. Before we get off, before we start this, does anyone else want to get out? Nope. And you also have the introduction of Falcon, who I do think Falcon is a little bit of an underrated character in the MCU. I don't think he's worthy to be the next Captain America. I'm sorry. Will Smith as Iron Man? That would have been awesome. That's just because I'm a big Will Smith fan. And actually, I think Will Smith would have made a really good version of Falcon. Nothing against the actor they have playing Falcon currently, but Will Smith, I think, would have been a really good Falcon. But overall, Winter Soldier, it's a great movie. I don't know why I avoided it for so long. I'd definitely say it's one of the best. At number 5 is Civil War. I really feel like the Captain America trilogy is one of those trilogies that just kept getting better as it went along. Kind of the same way with the Spider-Man trilogy, even though not a lot of people like Spider-Man 3. I do, so fuck off. Civil War, some people did criticize it for saying, I'm not underwater, Khalid. I just have a disco light that I have on at all times. Though, yes, it does look like I'm underwater. I do it to keep me at peace at night. Anyway, Civil War, some people criticized it for being pretty much a diet Avengers movie. I don't really think that's a problem, to be 100% honest, because Yeah, it's a Diet Avengers movie, but it still works as a Captain America movie. Captain America is the main focus for a good majority of the movie. It ends with Captain America being the main focus, and it begins with Captain America. Well, no, it begins with the Avengers, but it shifts into being a much more Captain America focused movie. Just so happens to have a lot of other characters in it. It has fantastic action scenes. It has a great superhero political debate. Being the introduction of the government trying to control the Avengers. Would you sign this document or would you not? I used to say, or basically, Team Iron Man or Team Captain America. I would not have signed that thing. I would have said, fuck you. And I would have explained to them, hey, look, we're superheroes. We fight supervillains. We will always do our best to make sure that people are safe. We will always do our best to make sure that people don't get hurt. But, oh yeah, definitely. That's when the MCU is at its most serious, except for Avengers Infinity War. But that one borders, no, it goes from being serious, it just turns into being depressing. But anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, I would say we're superheroes. We fight supervillains. We will always try to make sure that people are safe, but this is essentially a war. In war, there's always casualties. There will always be casualties. Yes, it sucks, and we will always try to save as many as we can, but as hard as we try, we just can't save everybody. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way that it is. So it does have a good, it has a good political debate because it's one of those debates that doesn't shove it down your throat. It lets you decide and make your own opinion and give you and make your own thoughts on the situation. It makes you think, is what I'm trying to say. It makes you think, and it enables conversation. Like anybody could easily ask, which team would you side with, Iron Man or Captain America? I'm kind of in the middle myself personally, but I guess I would have to say Captain America has a great point in the beginning of the movie, saying if we sign this, we're essentially forfeiting our right to choose, or something along those lines. And he's absolutely right. Not saying Civil War is a perfect movie, because my biggest problem with the movie is Spider-Man. He's extremely shoehorned into this movie. For the marketing for Civil War, they focused more on Spider-Man than Captain America and the rest of the people. So Spider-Man feels extremely shoehorned into this movie. He's actually he's the sole issue that I have with this movie. It does also introduce Black Panther, and as I said, I think Black Panther was done better in here than in his own fucking movie. Fuck Black Panther. He was a little bit like Doomsday in Batman versus Superman, but I'd actually say Spider-Man is even worse here than in Batman versus Superman. So yeah, I actually could have done without Spider-Man in this movie, but aside from that, Civil War is a great movie. At number 4, Thor Ragnarok. I wasn't really interested in seeing Thor Ragnarok until I saw Hulk was in it. And then I was like, okay, I need to see this. So I didn't see it in theaters. I've only seen Iron Man, Iron Man 2, The Incredible Hulk, and that's it in theaters. I've seen no other MCU movies in theaters, but there's quite a few that I wish I did see in theaters. I wish I saw Thor Ragnarok in theaters. As I've said, I hated the first Thor. I thought it was a complete piece of shit. So I went into Thor Ragnarok expecting a fun time, and that's what I got. I heard a rumor that when James Gunn was fired from directing Guardians of the Galaxy 3, that supposedly Marvel was considering the guy who directed Thor Ragnarok to direct Guardians 3. I actually would have been completely okay with that because A, it would have had a great soundtrack because Thor Ragnarok has a great soundtrack. B, it would have had a great balance between action, seriousness, and humor, which I think Thor Ragnarok does perfectly. And also B, it would have had the fun factor from Thor Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok is just an unabashedly fun movie. Even though it deals with an apocalyptic event, which that is what Ragnarok is in Norse mythology. Ragnarok is the apocalypse for the Norse gods, essentially. No, I am not excited for Natalie Portman to become Thor in the next Thor movie. I'm going to talk about that after this list is over real quick. It handles it with a level of seriousness, but it's also mixed with a level of humor. The fight between Thor and Hulk in the gladiator pits is awesome. It's also a little funny. It's also nice to see Hulk back after 2 years of absence from Avengers Age of Ultron. Okay, sorry. In the Japanese version, Hulk kills Thor. Oh, brother. Are you seriously going, like, comparing that to the myth of Kong winning in the Japanese or the American version and Godzilla winning in the Japanese version? Are you kidding me? That's retarded. Do I have any issues with Thor Ragnarok? One, Hela or Hera or whatever her name is. She is the worst villain in the entire MCU. She has no character, no presence, no sense of threat. She's just literally, she's a mustache twirling villain. She's just bad for the sake of being bad, being homicidal, genocidal for the sake of being homicidal, genocidal. There's nothing to Hera whatsoever. She's the worst. Actually, when she's on screen, I feel like that's when the movie really suffers. The only scene that I like her in is when she first shows up saying, "You look like him. You sound like him." That's it. Other than that, it's also nice to see Jeff Goldblum back in a movie. So he was a nice addition. But other than that, Thor Ragnarok, it's a great movie. It's really fun, lots of action, really funny. It's just a good movie. And number 3, The Incredible Hulk. I feel like it's a damn shame that a lot of people have pretty much forgotten about this movie, except for me. I am a huge fan of this movie. Great action scenes, a great story. Again, more world building, but it's not forced world building. Great use of the Abomination. I love this version of Hulk. Fantastic special effects. Lots of nice nods to the 70s Incredible Hulk show. Of course, you have a cameo with Lou Ferrigno. The Incredible Hulk, in my opinion, it's a forgotten masterpiece. It's a damn shame that it did so badly in theaters, because I feel like if it did better, Universal might have. Anyway, so yeah, The Incredible Hulk, in my opinion, it's an unsung masterpiece. Why does Betty Ross keep getting forgotten? No, I actually say Liv Tyler is better as Betty Ross than Jennifer Connelly. I need to do a re-review of Hulk 2003 because I do realize that movie has some problems. Later date, though. So coming in at number 2 is the first Avengers. The first of the MCU to make over $1 billion. Rightfully so. The Avengers is a masterpiece. Fantastic action scenes. Great chemistry between every single member of the Avengers. Great storyline. Loki is not my favorite villain, but I do feel like this Loki is one of the better villains in the Avengers. Fantastic action scenes. I like how long it is, too. Great special effects. The battle in New York is one of the greatest fight scenes of any superhero movie that I've ever seen. It's fucking awesome. It's too short, but then again, I say all action scenes are too short. I wish I saw it in theaters. I envy everybody who went to go see that movie in theaters. Holy fuck, I wish I could have seen The Avengers in theaters, but I didn't. The Avengers is a masterpiece. And it's just one short step below between number one. What the hell else do you guys think it is? Of course, it's Avengers Age of Ultron. I've already talked about this movie to death. It's my favorite superhero movie, one of my favorite movies of all time. And it's the best of the MCU. It's got the best of everything: the best action, best effects, best characters, best dialogue, best humor, best villain. Age of Ultron is a masterpiece. I don't give a shit what anybody says. Anyone who says Age of Ultron is bad, go eat a dick. So, with that being said, I am done. I am wiping my hands with the MCU, except for Avengers Endgame, because Avengers Endgame, in my opinion, is the true end of an era. I don't give a shit about any other MCU movie that's coming out. I don't like that Natalie Portman is coming back to play a female Thor. I don't care about a Captain Marvel sequel. I don't care about Black Panther sequel. I don't care about a Doctor Strange sequel. The MCU died with Avengers Endgame, kind of like with how the X-Men series died with Logan. As far as I'm concerned, the MCU is over. I don't give a shit about anything else. Natalie Portman can just go burn in hell. Black Panther 2 can just go burn in hell. I don't give a damn. I'm done. I don't think I'll do that, Justin. At least not anytime soon. Oh, that feels good. It's humid as fucking here. So, with all that being said, post your motherfucking down. Or post your motherfucking comments down in the comment section below. I would be interested in Blade if A, they recast Blade, and B, if it's R-rated. Because I don't think they made a good decision by casting Mahershala Ali, or whatever the hell his name is, the guy from Alita Battle Angel, as Blade. Unless he goes through extensive martial arts training, I really don't care. They better make the movie R-rated too, because I guarantee if they made it PG-13, it would do about as well as if they released a PG-13 rated Deadpool. Jack Diddley squat. But if it's R-rated, maybe I'll give that one a look. But post your comments down and below and let me know what you think. Hit the like button and hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends. And as always, I will see you guys in the next one. And go out and watch some superhero movies. They're all really fun. Except the bad ones like Black Panther. And I will see you guys in the next video.